I think Russia can sustain at least 2 or 3 years if sanctions and other pressure, political pressure and support of Ukraine with long-range weapon um, don't take place.
How long can Ukraine sustain this?
It's a pity, but I must say this: without support, not too long.
You're on the gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. My guest is standing by on the window from Ukraine, from Kyiv, Ukraine. His name is Vadym Chernysh. He was a former minister in the Ukrainian government. He is presently head of the Center for Security Studies at think tank. Vadym Chernysh, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Chernysh, I'd like to begin with the peace efforts that Ukraine has seen for some time. What is your assessment of where this peace effort has gone? What has been achieved?
For the time being, there are two options, in my opinion. One of them is a frozen conflict, as in many places in Europe where Russia is a party of the conflict. Another is continuation of offensive, Russian offensive, defensive strategy from Ukraine, trying to stop them with the partner efforts. And now we are closer to frozen conflict, in my opinion. But the ratio, in my opinion, is approximately 60 to 40. So that means that we are not very close to that solution that has been spread widely by European leaders. So now we are in the middle of the battlefield, and Russians believe that they are able to catch more territories of Ukraine. So if they believe, they have no reason to stop.
Mhm. So, how would you describe President Trump's efforts towards peace in Ukraine?
Uh, for many Ukrainian analysts and strategists, is a headache. His chaotic strategy, I mean, no, not strategy, his chaotic approach and absence of strategy is chilling in many minds in Ukraine among strategists and analysts. So it's very difficult in this fluid environment, this unstable situation with Trump's tariffs policy, dealing how he deals with European partners, with Ukraine. Um, of course, for many is a challenge, another challenge. So this walled space, I would say. So that's a kind of challenge to formulate your own policy, of course, in such environments.
Mhm. And would you say President Zelensky has tried his best, or he's left with a very very sticky wicket?
Uh, the majority of Ukrainian population believe Zelensky in general,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we think he could do more efforts. He could be more sophisticated in some things, less emotional, and more strategic. So that's why if we are talking about trust, we trust him. I mean, the majority of the population trust him. But at the same time, we understand many gaps in his approach to deal with the peace negotiation process. So we remember those efforts of peace forums, conferences, etc., etc. They were unrealistic as approach to reach stable and sustainable peace in Ukraine. So that's why many criticize him, but at the same time, as a national unity component, it is still present in Ukraine to support Mr. Zelensky as a national leader. At the same time, with some flaws in his policy towards peace. So it's more the matter of unity than the matter of estimating his policy.
If given that Russia has occupied a fair amount of Ukrainian territory, um, is it? I mean, how does one actually get around the fact that the Russians are not going to leave, and President Zelensky's demand that there should be complete withdrawal, in that sense, is unrealistic?
No, this is not realistic. Of course, Russia will fight until, in their opinion, until they can present their results to Russian population as a victory. So the victory means you get something, more territories or more control or something else. So for Russia and estimating its power for the time being, especially military power, non-economic power, they still have a lot of power in their hands. Military component is quite significant to account for. So it means that it's not realistic. So that's why the common ground for European leaders, Mr. Trump, for the time being, we don't know what will happen next with Mr. Trump's administration. But for the time being, European leaders, the President of the United States, and Mr. Zelensky and his government have a common ground to freeze the conflict and then deal with our territories by diplomatic and other type of means, including economic sanctions or pressure, etc., etc., etc. So other instruments of national power, not the military one.
So, in that sense, the new sanctions that President Trump has announced, you would say they should have come earlier.
Mm, yes, and Mr. Biden, when he was president of the United States,
Yeah.
sanctioned the third and the fourth in the list of most powerful economically Russian companies. Now it turns to the first and the second in that list. So, if of course we believe that it should have done earlier, and but better now than never.
True, true. Where do you see the efforts of countries like India, for instance, in this kind of peace process? We are there, we are not quite there. Nobody seems to really know what we are up to.
Uh, my first point is that we believed in India serious support and help in almost maybe 8 months ago. So we believe that India could have been a mediator or a kind of main negotiator in the process to settle the conflict by engaging with two parties, Russia and Ukraine. But now it's gone completely. So, and the problem is that there are two issues circulating within Ukrainian society. The first one is India is buying Russian oil, and the second one, India is buying Russian weapons. And as kind of negative issues, but not so negative to cancel all our historical relationship with our countries. And of course, if it comes, I know this very difficult and complex issue with the Indian oil trade with Russia. So many experts in Ukraine say or think that even sanction policy could be different towards not the whole country, but to those elements of interest or companies who deal with Russia. So instead of sanction the whole country, you should do kind of targeting sanctions to some
Mhm.
companies, etc., etc. So we understand completely that it could be more efficient if you not to sanction all the whole country and all people in the country, etc., etc., etc. So, but at the
Yeah.
same time, uh, uh, two negative issues and no positive policy signs from India within Ukrainian society. I mean, overtly, so not covertly or dialogues behind the scene. So the majority of the population should get something, in my opinion. I'm sorry for telling you this, but in my opinion, it should give us something positive
Mm.
from Indian side as a state, as from the country. So in order to probably to mitigate some negative issues of two of those two mentioned before.
So, from the Ukrainian side, you think India is too closely tied to Russia to be able to really be an honest broker here?
Yeah. Yes, the majority of the population, based on our sociological researches and surveys, the majority of the population think that India is closer to Russia than to Ukraine because of that, those two issues that I mentioned above.
Mm.
So it means that we need something as a society, we need something from India. So we would like to have something from Indian side to give us more food for thought that
Mm.
India is not far from us.
Mhm. Okay, what is your assessment of how China has behaved in this during this entire war?
China is China strictly supports Russia in their war. Unlike India, no comparison, no comparison. So it's far from direct support, even with this oil issue. The China gives a lot of, for example, their machine tools for their military industry, a lot of spare parts and components for drones, for example, much more than to Ukraine. We need to use a lot of different ways to avoid some kind of China's control on the spare parts and components to Ukrainian drones. So that's why China supports Russians very much. Another challenge for us, they have their own industry, parts of the industry, companies of military industry belong to Russian military industry in China. So they produce some elements of their drones and other military products within China.
Mhm.
Another way when they or how they cooperate is sanction evasion. So to avoid sanction regime, they use many Chinese companies. At
Yeah,
the very beginning of Russian war against Ukraine, they even put the bridge under the Kerch Bridge in Crimea. So China
yeah.
supported them in 2014. They gave
Mhm.
them many technologies to connect Crimea electricity grid system with the Russian one.
Mhm.
They use Russian commercial short-range radars as a military radar with some amendments to detect Ukrainian drones, for example, on the battlefield. So they use a lot of indirect efforts, covert efforts to support Russia. And at the same time, they say, no, we don't support them. But in fact, we have not very much, of course, because if you have a covert relationship in this, so it means that no one should know
What you're up to.
information, should not have no information about that. So that does mean that we don't have a lot of direct evidence, but indirectly we have a lot of things that show, that demonstrate that China's support of Russia is significant. And policy, of course, foreign policy.
Yeah.
All the time they block our efforts and support Russian efforts.
Yeah. Tell me, the presence of North Korean troops in Ukraine, was this something that you expected? Did you have some intelligence about it? And what has been the what have they achieved so far, the North Koreans?
In my opinion, nothing. They just gave some kind of additional troops for Russian army in Ukraine, because they were, I mean, Russians were able to withdraw some troops in Kursk region in order to use them in other parts of the front line. I mean, in other areas along the front line. So they allowed, I mean, Korean troops allowed Russians to concentrate their troops in Donetsk region and other regions of Ukraine, and another support that they have a kind of immediate tool to mitigate the problem with Kursk invasion of Ukrainian forces. So they don't have enough reserve to use them immediately. So that's why they use unprepared, untrained Korean troops there. But at the same time, that's a kind of benefit for Korean troops and Korean army, because they have learned a lot of new tactics on the battlefield: drones, artillery, communication, electronic warfare, etc., etc., etc. That's a kind of new, relevantly new component. And unlike, I'm sorry for mentioning India, and because you don't ask me about that, but I remember, and some of our experts remember, that when Prime Minister Modi visited Moscow, he demanded to withdraw and to free, I would say, all Indians soldiers within Russian army. So of course we noticed that. So that's cooperation. That cooperation between Russia and Korea, I mean Northern Korea, is beneficial for both sides. For Russians, manpower, immediate resources. I mean, like a, I don't know, like a additional reserve on their spot. I mean, in Kursk region, and Russia as well Russia has their military industry not only in China, as I mentioned before, but in Korea as well. So about intelligence, of course, we didn't have enough intelligence when they kind of boiled this intention before their arrival. I mean, Korean troops arrival. But as soon as they decided, we knew this. Of course, we knew this, and we monitored not only by our own eyes, but with some eyes, with some support from international partners, of course. As transit of their troops across the whole country. The whole country is the big country. So we saw a lot of, we saw and find a lot of video in Telegram, on Telegram. So that's kind of stupidity of Russian troops to show them, to demonstrate, or as some people thought that time, that after spreading it, so that at the very beginning it was a stupidity, but in 2 weeks it was a psychological warfare element. So they demonstrated many videos. They spread it them across Telegram in order to let us know that many Korean troops were coming to Ukrainian border, etc., etc. So they tried to persuade us that this is a real significant threat to Ukraine. So that's two different Russian tactics that time. So at the first stage, completely nothing, covered, etc., etc., in secrecy. Then the kind of psychological warfare, demonstrating on them on the battlefield, in the video with this awards gotten from Russian commanders, etc., etc., etc. So this is a part of psychological warfare for the time being, and it has helpful for Northern Korea within their environment and their circumstances to demonstrate that in case of your so-called aggressive action against North Korea, Russians will come to protect us as we did when
I
they
see.
needed it.
Tell me, how many North Korean soldiers are you holding who have been made prisoner? How many Indians?
Not Indians. I've never heard about the Indians in our as a kind of prisoners of war.
Mhm.
I've never heard, and no public information, if I am not wrong. No, no. But about several Northern Koreans. And even people from South Korea, intelligence officers, came to Ukraine that time to interrogate them.
Mhm.
So because of some language problems, because of some cultural problems, etc., etc. But we saw many information on Telegram again, on Russian segment of Telegram about Indians in their units, within their units, but no real photo except some of them, two or three or something like that. So not many.
Okay.
But those two cases were spread widely on Telegram. So
Uh-huh.
to demonstrate that even three people, but if you are not very trained to distinct psychological or informational warfare, so it could create a kind of opinion. It could recall that
Yeah.
many Indians or something like that. That's very significant. That India supports us, etc. Them, not us. India support them because you see many Indians in our forces, etc., etc. And it doesn't work, of course, but the attempt
Yeah.
was detected.
Yeah. Tell me, where do you see this war going? You think Russia can sustain it for how long?
I think Russia can sustain at least 2 or 3 years if sanctions and other pressure, political pressure and support of Ukraine with long-range weapon um, don't take place. So that we need some support, we need pressure simultaneously. So, the problem is that if it comes to military, any military strategy, you should concentrate your efforts on in some areas or pointing them out on some specific problems, vulnerability of your enemy or adversary. So that's why sometimes European support came to us not in the right time, in the right place, and
Hmm.
and not with the weapons that we need. For example, two years ago, we needed many tanks. Now we don't need them in the same
Hmm.
quantity. But tanks still, for example, Poland, that's a kind of Polish Polish national strategy uh, demanded from them to modernize their tanks, and they buy the 1,000 tanks. They ordered 1,000 tanks from South Korea.
I see.
For what purpose? 3 years, 5 years. Situation has
Yeah,
changed completely.
dramatically.
So that's why when it comes to the strategy, we need in the right time the right weapon and simultaneously many elements of national power to put pressure on Russia economically, military, diplomatically, etc., etc. So the, now we understand that the lack of this comprehensive strategy and comprehensive use of different tools, include military one, uh, is a problem for us as a country because we don't have in the right time what we need. So if they support us and we find a way how to change our tactics in accordance with the kind of fluid environment, so we'll put a lot of losses on Russia, and it could work, in my opinion, faster than in the current condition.
So, my last question: how long can Ukraine sustain this? Will President Zelensky be at some time decide that this far and no further and throw in the towel?
It's a pity, but I must say this: without support, not too long.
Hmm.
So our support, civilian and military support, because we have almost a half of our budget from our partners. I mean, not military budget,
Yeah. Hmm.
civilian part of it. So without support, not so long, unfortunately. So that's why, and my last point in connection with the previous answers and this one, that asymmetric strategy is a key in this war, because we don't have a lot of people, or
Yeah.
our population is not equal to Russian one.
Yeah.
So it means that we should find a way all the time. We should change and change and change the kind of warfare tactics and operational approach in order to put a lot of losses on them and less on us and survive in that. So that's why we need more technical means to wage the war. So that's why without this support, it's for us it will be very difficult to continue even next year.
So, asymmetric technologies and strategies is the way forward for Ukraine. As to how far, how long this war can drag on, well, we'll have to wait and see. A lot depends on what kind of international pressure that Russia comes under, and what some of the key supporters of Ukraine are able to muster in terms of material and other support. Vadym Chernysh, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's not very often that we get to hear a voice from Ukraine, and you are that voice, and we will come to you again going forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for this opportunity.
That's all we have for you in this broadcast. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Thank you very much.